Hey, boys and girls. Boys and girls? Do I have girls that watch me? Nah, my voice isn't sexy enough. Anyways, I just wanted to let you guys know that I'm finally back. I got my freaking headphones and everything's gonna be great. Now let's start off with a news story about what if Goku was smart. Now, a few things to note before we start. This main character is not going to be Goku. Well, it is, but not the same person you remember. This all has to do with the circumstances we'll cover later. The story starts on Vegeta, 8 years before the destruction of planet. Bardock has just come back from a long and harsh mission. His armor is torn to shreds, but thanks to an onboard healing pod and his ship, he is in perfectly fine shape. Bardock is stepping off his ship when he hears a familiar voice. It's that mechanic girl, Guina. Of course it is. Damn, how can a Tuffleborn be just as loud as a normal Saiyan? Too bad the woman didn't have the power to back up that spine. Her Saiyan pride is definitely not lacking, but her strength was. Bardock walks to the sound of the voice when he sees two of Vegeta's men harassing the young woman. Bardock can tell she's already thought of a way out of this, but he doesn't really care. He's not in the mood to have his favorite mechanic killed by the elitist trash king of theirs. So, without saying a word, he rushes the elite soldiers and smashes their heads into each other, knocking them out cold, before tossing them far out into the wastelands. If they survive, they'll have no idea what happened, so they can't report him. And honestly, why would they? The story sounds like a Tuffleborn beat the crap out of them. You didn't have to do that, Bardock, Guina said, pulling out her blaster, modified with a large electrical dispersal unit on the front for inducing temporary paralysis. Hey, I don't need my racist trash king to have a reason to toss my favorite mechanic in the dungeon now, do I? Bardock said, laughing, as he leaned against the large ship he was working on. Oh, I'm your favorite, am I? Guina said with a small playful smirk. Getting close to Bardock and leaning into him, Bardock even blushes slightly at the woman's boldness. Damn, he was whipped. That's what I said, wasn't it? Bardock said sheepishly, chuckling to himself. You know, they're starting to lift the breeding laws on Tuffles and Warrior Saiyans, Bardock, Guina said, giggling. She notices Bardock's face turning beet red. The woman always knew just what to say to turn him into a gibbering mess. Wait, are you serious? Bardock said, staring out. Yeah, something about needing to increase the numbers due to a string of tougher missions Frieza's sending us on. You know, Bardock, I think we'd make some cute babies, Guina said, getting even closer to Bardock, obviously invading his personal space. Not that he minded that much. Well, I don't really care if they're cute. I just want them to be strong and capable warriors, Bardock said kind of wistfully. He was reaching the age where Saiyans should be busting out babies to ensure the strength of the Saiyan race. And honestly, the few women that he knew annoyed him less than Guina. Well, other than Celepa, but she had an extenuating circumstance that Bardock didn't think she was going to be mating with any males anytime soon. Oh? And what if they're smart like me? Guina said, mock hurt, knowing the way a typical Saiyan warrior thought. Hell, if they can fix a ship half as good as you, after I wreck the damn thing, it wouldn't be so bad of a trade-off. As long as they don't mind every time I beat them into the dirt. Honestly, I'd prefer a bit more of both. Capable and smart. Powerful and ruthless. Ideal Saiyan warrior. Someone who should be right to rule this dirt ball instead of bowing under Frieza's heel, Bardock said with a sort of indignance. It was no secret that he wasn't a fan of Frieza, or the king. He made his opinion heard often. Still, as the strongest of all the mid-born warriors, he was actually entitled to speak his mind, unlike all the low-class Saiyans, who, if they survived getting sent off planet, would come back and be treated more like cattle and cannon fodder, and given substandard training. Bardock, you always get like this. Focus on me. Aren't I pretty? Guina said, trying to take Bardock's mind off of all the nonsense going through it. It was good to dwell on what you can't change, and Guina knew better than anyone, so she broke that mood with a joke, and Bardock returned in kind. I mean, I guess you are pretty cute, for a Tuffleborn, Bardock said with a twisted smirk, right before getting tased in his solar plexus. I'll be in my quarters when you're ready to apologize for that remark. Guina bumped and walked away fiercely. Oh yeah, Bardock had fallen hard. Literally, He dislocated his shoulder, hitting the ground. 1 year later. How long does it take to leave the incubation pod again? Bardock asked the doctor, staring up at Raditz, while Bardock couldn't stop smiling at the results of his reading of his kid. He should be ready to leave in a few months. Little bastard went and upped his power level on me. 353. That's damn impressive. Good for the little brat. I'll make sure to train him till he's even stronger, Bardock said, smiling with his son at pride. This was his son, Raditz. He had a good feeling about this one. Anyways, you two should leave. The elites are coming for their regular visit with the midborn children, before they disown them. The Tuffleborn doctor muttered under his breath. It was common knowledge that if an elite had a child that was anything less than another elite, they were considered trash, and threw it to the wayside. It grew up in the system rather than pampered like all the other elites. Well, as pampered as a Saiyan could get, the doctor thought solemnly. He hated Planet Vegeta. Even if he was a Saiyan, he couldn't feel any Saiyan pride with all that he saw every day. And so Guina and Bardock left the room. And we skip another 5 years. Well, this one's Kakarot. Bardock opened his jaw. 4,000? That's too much. They're going to take his son away from him. He's an elite. Bardock rushed to find the doctor, but the doctor grabs Bardock's shirt and pulls him into a supply closet. Shh! Shut up a minute. I'm going to falsify Kakarot's records. His power level will say he's weaker than the prince, I promise. I don't care about that. If he's marked as an elite, they'll take my son away. You don't know the worst part. King Vegeta makes a habit of ridding any Saiyans that outmatch his son in power, to secure his family's claim on the throne. You're already unusual, Bardock. You actually formed a family. Most Saiyans don't do that, except for the royal line. That already makes you a threat, as it shows that you have the mentality of the royals in you. You're growing too rapidly, which proves you have the potential of the royals. You're too much of a threat. If your son is labeled an elite, you will die. I'm going to put him in the mid-class, run a low-level electrical interference through his pod to mask his signature and get it down to 500. But still, that's extremely high, and we'll have to be careful about this. I know you're going on a mission soon, but I promise your son will be here when you get back. The doctor made us promise, as he ran to finish falsifying the reports. Bardock was having a heart attack. So, the king thinks me a threat. Well, then maybe I should be one, Bardock says as he runs off to Guina to tell her all the information he found out. Kakarot and Raditz would be sent away ahead of schedule. 1 month later. Bardock had lied and said he injured himself and couldn't go on the mission. As such, his team was held back with the king wanting to prove how much better he was than Bardock. And he sent his own royal guard to finish the mission. It would take 1 year. The king, an overconfident fool, who thought that just because all of the mid-class and low-class heirs were weaker, that they wouldn't dare defy the king. He was wrong, and Bardock stood next to Guina as they loaded his sons up in the pod, ready to send them off. He looked at his sleeping Raditz. Now remember, wherever you land, you are to pose as one of them, infiltrate them, and make them revere you as gods. I scanned the planet. There are very few power levels higher than 100. As such, both of you and Kakarot's power should be enough to protect you. But your main priority is to survive until I come and get you. If I don't come within the next 5 years, assume my death. It'll be up to you to start the new Saiyan race. A proud Saiyan race after that. One that isn't a blight on the galaxy. You're still a little immature and brash, Raditz, but you're strong and you're brave. And I know deep down you're a kind man who cares deeply for those that treat you poorly. I believe in you. Bardock finishes. After he's done speaking, the recording device, setting it up in the ship to play on loop upon Raditz's landing. Then he walked to Kakarot's pod. Kakarot, you, my son, were born with the power of an elite, and as such we had planned to send you away to protect you from the king's wrath. If you get separated from your brother Raditz, I'll tell you this now. Your mission is to get strong enough and raise an army to destroy the evil space emperor Frieza. He's a conqueror and finds planets and destroys them, With the help of millions of races, he's enslaved and sells them to the highest bidder. The power level that he's seen with most often is 530,000, but there are rumors that he has transformations that can make it go up into the millions. To make sure your training goes well, I've included a scouter for your mother stole for you. Raditz has his own, and has already been separated from the Frieza Force's communications line. Son, I'm proud of you, and I know you'll grow up to be everything your mother and I see in you. Bardock looks and he sees another area littered with other 500 pods, with Saiyan parents standing in front of them. These aren't families per se, but they are Bardock supporters. The ones who have children too young to participate in the coup. Bardock convinced others to send off their children, and sending them off planet to either low priority or too strong to conquer under normal means, with a message that explained why the children were being sent away, and if they were being sent to planets with higher power levels that could kill them, then to explain to the child that they were not there for conquest, and that should get the natives to back off, possibly even train the child, which would be great. Bardock looked over to his side. He saw something he never suspected. It was Celipa on her knees crying, and that was definitely not usual for the loud-mouthed, brash Saiyan woman. Most people assumed that the woman's heart was as cold as planet Vegeta, as it had been when she was conquering planets for Frieza. Bardock walked over to her and put his hand on the woman's shoulder. Into the pod, she saw a Saiyan boy with a messy mohawk of black hair. "Where's your partner, Sabi?" Bardock asked on Celipa's shoulder. "She couldn't bear to send her away. I can barely manage it, but I know it'll keep him safe. But if those Namekians touch him, touch a hair on his head, I swear will kill them all. That's a promise." She noticed that Bardock was pressing the record button to add on to her message, and smiled. Her leader had always been a bit softer than the normal Saiyan. Hell, he was the reason she even started a family, because he was always talking about how great it was to have a wife to come home to, rather than an empty quarters. "Thanks, Bardock. You're gonna make one hell of a king." "I sure as shit hope so." Bardock smiled back nervously, and then he felt someone beside him. It was Guina. She had been training alongside him for the last little bit to be ready for the coup. She pulled both the Saiyans into a hug, and Bardock because she knew how worried he was with leading the coup. Whether he had numbers on his side or not, he was going against a rather large amount of elites. And Celipa, she could feel the heartbreak that the woman was going through, as it was the same she was going through as well. As the Tuffle men sent all the ships to their locations, Guina activated the cloaking devices to hide their power levels until they reached their locations. Just before the launch sequence was completed, another hand touched Celipa's back. She opened her eyes and looked back to see a young woman with long spiky hair and tear trough markings on her face. Wearing the typical Saiyan uniform dyed green, Celipa broke away from Guina's hug and embraced the woman behind her as they both cried. When the ship left and the ship shot into the atmosphere, Bardock and Guina embraced as much the same. As all the Saiyans started watching their children leave, their resolve hardened. They would win, and they would see their children again. With the pods. As the pods were flying through space, they were all in one big group, heading in one course away from any one of Frieza's ships that patrol the planet. As soon as they were all far enough away to not be detected, the 500 ships shot away from each other in pairs in the events that they were siblings, or in completely different directions that all the others that would avoid to confuse locals into thinking that it wasn't a baby invasion. Raditz awoke to find himself in the space pod. Not something that would usually freak him out, considering he was used to rolling with Vegeta. But since he went to sleep last night in bed, he's a little nettled. He looked around and he sees 50 pods flying in different directions, and looking through the ship's computer for any information on what's going on. He saw a message that was linked to the computer systems, as most were locked by an engineer's access code. His mother, no doubt. Raditz opened the message to hear Bardock's word, and he cries solemnly. He's a bit of a crybaby, and he knows that, but he doesn't care right now. His parents have sent him away to start a coup on planet Vegeta, and deemed him too useless to join in. No, that's not what it was, he told himself. No, they sent him to protect and raise Kakarot. And damn it, that's what he's gonna do. He finishes the message. 5 years to prepare for the return to planet Vegeta. With his brother, where they would be considered the princes. As they needed to be strong, he would raise Kakarot and help him with whatever mission he needed. He would also start to plan for the Saiyan race, in the case his father doesn't return for him. How would he restart it? He'll figure it out later. Unfortunately, out of the corner of his eye, he sees Kakarot's ship caught in a gravity eddy. Normally, that would be no issue. Kakarot's ship would break out on its own in a few seconds. However, a few seconds will throw off the landing time of Raditz's landing immensely. So now they will have to find his oblivious little brother. Raditz freaks out, trying desperately to override his mother's control lock. The woman probably thought that he would try to break free and go back home, but no, he's just trying to get his little brother back. He goes through thousands of access codes his mother taught him, but is getting a denied message every time, until he finally gives up and realizes he's going to have to deal with far more garbage upon landing than he would originally want to. So yeah, that's the finished part. This is the first part of a multiple-part series, Saiyan Legacy, and you can read up to 5 chapters ahead on Captain Jack 41 on fanfiction.net. Until we meet again, please like and subscribe, and if you really, really love me, you can go to my Patreon and read.